All right, so we talked about our charter, Canadian Charter of Rights and Freedoms. Again, I'm a big fan of it. It's not perfect. It can be improved, and it struggles like any other constitutional document with making sure that all people feel the full protection that it offers and the ideas that it represents. So this is a copy and paste version. The other actual constitution is a much fancier paper, which much more better presentation. But I wanted to just identify these things. And I also put this up, I'll put this up as well, so you can look at it and sort of have it. You might need it for the exam, you might need it for some other project. Okay, so it starts off this way. Whereas Canada is founded upon the principles that recognize the supremacy of God and rule of law. So it's saying that Canada is created on two ideas, supremacy of God and rule of law. Okay, so if you're an atheist or an agnostic, the first part's not that great for you because it says God is supreme, but you can live with that. Rule of law, which I think is probably the more important part, which means that everyone is subject to the law. No one can avoid the law, right? So the reason why people are really angry at Justin Trudeau, because he seems to be a person who does these things that are illegal and doesn't seem to get charged because the sense of rule of law should apply to him. That if he does bad things, he should go to jail. Doesn't matter if you're the prime minister or you're selling shoes. Everyone is subject to the law. So it's saying these are the two things Canada is founded on. Then the guarantee of rights and freedoms. Section 1. The Canadian Charter of Rights and Freedoms guarantees the rights and freedoms set out in it only subject to such reasonable limits prescribed by law as can be demonstrably justified in a free democratic society. So simply says that it guarantees the rights and freedoms set out here, but can only be limited by limits prescribed that can be proven they help to create a free and democratic society. Okay, so that's a lot of words I'm saying, but what I'm trying to get across is what we talked about. You have rights and freedoms. You've always have rights and freedoms. This charter guarantees it. Again, when they say guarantees, I would argue as a human being, you've always had these rights. It merely recognizes them. But it says we can have limits as long as we can justify why those limits are reasonable to promote a free and democratic society. So again, if I'm Eric Zundel, or Zundel is another racist hate monger, or Keekstra, and I want to believe in whatever angry, hateful thing I want, okay, you can. If you want to express whatever you want, technically under our Constitution, okay, you can. However, we can put limits on what you say. We can stop you from broadcasting it because your positions might lead to the destruction of Canada, which is a free and democratic society, right? So it's all limits. Like we said before, I cannot yell fire in a crowded theater because I want to, right? There are limits to what I can say and what I can do. And our charter guarantees that in Section 1, right? And it just establishes the fact that these limits, there's a test you have to go through. We talked about the Oakes test. You have to ask 4 questions. If every question passes, then the limitation's okay to have. If it fails even one of the questions, there's been a violation of your rights, and therefore the law that is in place is struck down. Okay. So the Charter protects those basic rights and freedoms. All Canadians are considered essential to preserving Canada as a free democratic country. It applies to all governments, federal, provincial, and territorial, and includes protections of the following. So fundamental freedoms, democratic rights, the right to live and seek employment anywhere in Canada. You have your legal rights, life, liberty, personal security, equal rights for all, official languages of Canada, minority language education rights, Canada's multicultural heritage, and Indigenous peoples' rights. So the last one, we haven't done our best job in supporting that. It is a tool that can be used by Indigenous groups and to make sure those rights are protected, to reinforce treaty rights that were signed years ago. But there has been pushback from the government. Right now, I mean, there are came before the Supreme Court to discuss Indigenous peoples' claims that their rights have been violated and that there needs to be restitution. So it is a tool to be used. It has not always protected those groups, right? So again, the Constitution is always an idea, doesn't always mean it always lives up to the idea. Okay, so the other part I want to talk about, the rights of freedom are not absolute. They can be limited to protect one another's rights or important national values. For example, freedom of expression may be limited by laws against hate propaganda or child pornography. So that's just what I was saying, that, you know, those are technically, you would argue, well, I can believe and see what I watch when I want to watch, but we'd say, no, you can't, because if it infringes on other people's rights or impedes national values, we can put limits on it. We can say, you can't do that, right? Okay, so I want to talk about Section 2, which is a big part, and again, it's second part in the Charter, because it's saying these are what's called fundamental freedoms, which means these are the things you have to have if you want to have a constitution and a democracy, right? 4 things. So the first one is, so it's called, if you were making a charter, if you were saying these rights are violated, you would refer to the number and a letter, right? That my Section 2B rights or 2A rights or 2 freedoms have been infringed upon. So here are the 4, and I'll make this quick so you guys can get back to work. Okay, first one is freedom of conscience and religion, right? That means you can believe in any God you want to believe, or you can choose not to believe at all, right? You cannot be persecuted for your religious beliefs. You cannot be persecuted because you have no religious beliefs, right? So you can believe and have conscience to that, right? So for example, if I were in court giving us, and I had to testify, and they said, okay, well, before we do that, you got to swear on the Bible. And I said, well, I'm agnostic. I don't believe in the Bible. I'm not swearing on that, right? If they say, well, either you swear on this Bible or you get thrown out as a witness and we'll charge you with contempt, right? I would say you're violating my freedom of conscience. I believe in truth. I believe in certain values. I do not believe in the Bible. So therefore, the state can't force me to do that. When I was a kid, we used to always have to do the Lord's Day's prayer. We would say, what was it again? I totally forget it. It was like, you would start off with, our Lord who is in heaven, hallowed be thy name, the daily bread, the kingdom come. You do that every day. You did it when you were a kid. I have a Muslim name. My mom's Muslim, right? So we didn't, you know, we're not Christians, but I had to say this speech every single day, being in class. There are a couple of kids who were more observant Muslims when I remember growing up, and they would just leave the room because they said, we don't want to say that. And then it took a while for the Supreme Court to say, well, wait a minute, we can't make people say the Lord's Prayer in school because what if you don't believe, right? There used to be no Sunday shopping because that was considered to be a national, a day that we're supposed to rest due to belief that that was the day that God said you have to rest. We struck that down because, wait a minute, not everyone had, that's their day of rest. Muslims are Friday, Saturday. Other groups are different parts of the week. Why does everyone have to shut down on Sunday? So that's freedom of religion and conscience. Freedom of thought, belief, opinion, and expression, including freedom of the press and other media of communication. So you can think, believe, have an opinion, and express that opinion. This is also ties into the idea that the press should be free to express their opinion without fear of government input or government interference or suppression, right? So any newspaper can say whatever they want about anyone, right? Expressing a thought, belief, or opinion, right? They can't say things that are untrue, but they can express an opinion. So the Toronto Sun spent many times doing opinion articles talking about how they thought Theresa Tam was a horrible chief medical officer of Canada, right? and even implying that maybe she's not really working for Canada because maybe she's working for the Chinese government because she's Chinese, blah, 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 blah. That's all crap, but they have a right to express that opinion because it is just an opinion, right? If they, however, again, those are our limits because if they said, it's perfectly, if the son said, it's perfectly okay to take a gun and shoot the prime minister when you don't agree with them because, you should have the right to own your country, that would be crossing the line. Also, papers can't, while expressing an opinion, they have to be careful. They can't say things that are untrue, right? So they can have an opinion upon you, they can have an opinion upon a judicial decision, but they can't print things that are untrue because they can be sued, right? So media communication should be able to, the press has the freedom to say what it wants. In Canada, we enjoy that. Other countries, China, there is no press freedom. You have to, anything that's approved in the press has to be approved by the state government, okay? And other countries as well that are authoritarians have the system in place. C, freedom of peaceful assembly, right? Which means you're allowed to gather in groups, right? Now, right now, can we gather in groups?
No, because of COVID.
Right. I mean, we can, but there are limits, right? We can only, does anyone know what the limits are right now? Indoor, outdoor, does anyone know the limits?
It's reduced now than what it was in the summer because of the numbers rising.
Right. So it's
Like
10,
50 outside.
10 indoor, 25 outdoor, unless you're a school or a church or a restaurant. I think there are different things, but they're saying that, look, so technically the police, if 50 people showed up and just had in a parking lot for no apparent reason, you could get ticketed, right? Now you're doing nothing, you're just there, but under these orders, the limitations have been put up that you can't be there. Other than that, you can assemble peacefully. Now, sometimes there are limits, like if you wanted to protest, specifically, you might have to get a permit to let them know that, hey, I'm going to march down this street and I'm going to hold up signs for a protest. And the government goes, okay, well, thanks for letting us know. But you do have the right to assemble peaceful assembly. You don't have the right to get together and start a street fight, right? That's not peaceful assembly. That's the limitation. The other one is freedom of association. You can join whatever group you want to join, right? Within reason, as long as the group is not engaged in criminal activity. So if you want to join a group that, let's say, you're all car enthusiasts and you want to go someplace and look at each other's cars and show off your engines and modifications you made to your car and what you did, but that's fine. However, if you're joining this group and then you guys all decide to go street racing, you can't do that, right? You're allowed to associate with a group of people as long as the activity is not criminal. If you're part of a criminal organization, you can't associate, right? So if I ran a organized crime family, I can't say we're gathering and I have freedom of association. No, because the activity I'm going to do is criminal activity and therefore can be limited. So those are all the 4 things they say you need to have in society. If you can't believe what you want to believe or choose not to believe, if you can't express your opinions, beliefs, and thoughts without being, and the press can't do so without fear of oppression from the government, if you cannot assemble with people the way you want to, and you cannot associate with people, you don't have a democracy. So these are the core fundamental freedoms that people have. They're also the ones that are difficult because sometimes we can all see how each one of these freedoms can have limitations that we agree to. Again, right now in the pandemic, we are limiting our ability to freedom of association and peaceful assembly. We are saying to people, you cannot gather in large groups, right? Or else there's trouble. Okay, right? Governments sometimes don't tell us everything's going on. We want to know, we should know, can we? right? And conscience and religion, you know, people should believe what they want to believe, but if that religion decides that, hey, you know, it's a good idea that we should sacrifice virgins at the top of a volcano, do we let that slide? Okay. Are there any questions about the fundamental freedoms? Everyone get what they are? Awesome sauce. Okay, that's all I want to do today. I'm going to stop the recording.